What's up, guys? Back again with Gabriel as we enter what I'm calling a new era of Chicago Bears football. We have an all-star type of coaching staff. I'm so excited by the Dennis Allen hire. To me, that was the biggest one of the whole group is Dennis Allen, a key veteran defensive coordinator. Welcome again, my good friend Gabriel. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing good. In fact, we haven't been on since they hired Ben Johnson.
I know, yeah.
We were on like 3 days before.
Yep, right before.
And at that time, if you recall, it looked like, and his agent's a friend of mine.
Yep.
But, I never want to cross the line and ask questions I shouldn't ask. And I've known the guy, and he came on my podcast on Monday.
But I watched it, yeah. So I saw him. I actually have a video. I was going to talk about some of the things he said, but I actually was waiting until our show till I put that one out there. But if you guys hadn't seen any of the things that Rick Smith had said, he joined a couple of podcasts this week, but he also joined Gabriel over on the Bar Room, and he gave some juicy details behind the scenes that, as Bears fan, I've never heard details like that as far as a coach hiring. So there's a lot of good stuff in there.
Well, when I saw that, who was it? Weeder put it out that, and this was like, maybe we did a show 2 weeks ago today. So maybe it was like Wednesday of that week.
Okay.
He puts out that Johnson had switched agents, and it wasn't recently, to Rick Smith. He had Richmond Flowers. As soon as I saw that, I knew, well, Bears got a chance. But I was still buying into the Raider thing. And so I'm just thinking, okay, who's the next best choice? And that's the way I was, between tweets and everything else, that's the way I was thinking. And, as we talked about 2 weeks ago, Monken and some of those guys sounded like it would be the best guy. Maybe McCarthy's he's getting shut out.
He's taking a year off, yeah.
Yeah, well, I think he's getting forced into taking a year off because he wasn't going to get the job. But it was funny because, Monday, I every day I get up and I do some reports for these agents that I do work for. And then I'll rest a little bit. So I take like about a 20-minute nap.
Okay.
Wake up from the nap, turn on my X feed, and it's like 10 minutes after it came out that Johnson was going to be the head coach. And I'm like, what the fuck? It was, as I fall asleep for 20 minutes and all hell breaks loose.
Yeah, it was wild, man. It happened so quick. And I think I had dozed off. I'd like taken a quick nap, and like I woke up to that news, and I was like, it took a minute before I was like, wait a minute. I was like, wait a minute. Already? Like he's coming in to interview? Like he hasn't even been to Dallas Hall yet. I was like, wait a minute.
But what's funny is that, and Rick said it with me, is that they talked Monday morning, and Ben said, call Chicago, get a deal done.
Yeah, so I heard the first thing I heard was straight from Rick Smith was that basically Ben Johnson, and this was the biggest thing. A lot of Lions fans are like, Ben Johnson wasn't preparing for the playoffs. He wasn't ready.
Bullshit.
It was Rick Smith who was the one getting ready. He was the one meeting with Ryan Poles, asking Ryan Poles all the tough questions that we as fans wish we could ask Ryan Poles. He was able to do that. And he put together what he said is after the game ended, the playoff loss Sunday, he went to Ben Johnson's house, did a presentation for him and his wife, and basically gave him the plus and minuses of all the teams, broke it down, and then Ben Johnson slept on it. And he said all along, Ben Johnson's heart was always in Chicago and it never wavered. And that, to me, that was huge. The fact that he actually wanted to be here, and that when he spoke to Dennis Allen also gave him a short list of teams. He's like, yes, I'd love to pair up with you, but I want to go to a defense that has the pieces I'm looking for. And the Bears were one of them. So just an awesome.
Yeah, they don't want to be set up for a possible failure.
Mm-hmm.
And Dennis, as a coordinator, has had a superlative career. So he's had good players. He just hasn't done well as a head coach for whatever reason. But as a coordinator, he's excellent. And you look at the pieces here, and there's some pretty damn good players. Still need a few more.
Oh yeah, and one of the things I think is underlooked is one thing that Dennis Allen did during his time in New Orleans, and Marshawn Lattimore was the guy he allowed to do it. He allowed Lattimore to shadow number one receivers. It's something that Jalen Johnson hasn't done since he's been a Chicago Bear. We haven't had a coach.
I think there's been a couple games when he's done it, especially when there's
like
been injuries, but never. Yeah, but not on a full-time basis.
I think Dennis Allen, that's something that could potentially be unlocked this year, is he could have Jalen Johnson follow around number ones. I also think he might even have Kyler Gordon play a bit more hybrid. He could play outside some. He could play in nickel. He could even play him a little bit like Brian Branch does in Detroit, where he uses them at safety at times. There's a lot of intriguing possibilities with his secondary. And he's going to get more out of Tyreek.
Good players. They got good players. Well, Harris is going to take care of Tyreek.
Yeah, Tyreek's going to get his together,
or kill him first.
Yeah, he'll be gone.
I mean, and that's the way Harris is, and where he's not an old guy, but he's old school.
Yeah,
and he will hard coach him, and he will knock all the nonsense out of him. I mean, right away, he gets the job. He calls him up, go see this guy and start working with him.
Yep, 100%. And one of the things I took away from all the press conferences and Ben Johnson, he went on the Rich Eisen show and did some other things, is this is a guy who demands accountability. And my favorite quote from him was, you got to beat the best to be the best. And it was part of his reasoning of why he wanted to come to the NFC North, is he knows this is one of the best divisions in football, and he wanted to come here. To me, that says a lot, and I'm so excited about this hire. And then my other thought, you've been around the NFL a long time. You've seen a lot of first-time coaches. How rare do you think it was that Ben Johnson not only had the awareness to reach out to Dennis Allen, but he did it immediately after he was fired, way back in early November?
Okay, let's go back to what we were talking about a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
When these guys get interviewed, they already know they don't know the whole staff. They know who the main pieces of their staff are going to be because they get commitments from guys.
Yep.
Now, I think in the case of Ben Johnson, he probably had a semi-commitment from Fraley.
Okay.
And that wavered. It just, I'm reading between the lines here. But aside from that, it was reported right after Johnson got hired that Dennis Allen was going to be his DC. What screws that up, though, is you've got to go through, with all your coordinator positions, you've got to go through the interview process.
Yeah.
And then there's guys that don't want to take interviews because they don't want to be a token interview. So a lot of times people don't want that stuff put out. And it does, unfortunately, because the agents know it. So, and speaking of that, I mean, it's the news people are the guys that are putting out the stuff that Ian's going to Jacksonville as the GM, and I've talked to 4 people, all of them say it's a done deal. Oh, yeah. So whether
you've heard that, you do think Ian's going to Jacksonville?
4 people I trust have all said it's a done deal.
Oh, dang. Okay. I was kind of, so to me, like the whole process in Jacksonville, I was kind of bewildered by it because the Senior Bowl practices are already going on. The whole week is done now of practice, and they don't have a GM. And to me, that's weird. And
they came out earlier in the week. The owner said, well, we'll have the GM hired. We want to get
by February 28th.
Yes. He wants to get Cohen in and settled. But if I'm Kevin Warren, now they even if Ian is his guy, they still got to go through a process.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm Kevin Warren, I call Jacksonville and go, hey, look this is what we're being told. Ian could tell him too, hey, I'm getting this job. I mean, he might already know too. From what I understand, Cohen and Ian got the same agent.
Okay.
So
and Ian is down at the Senior Bowl. I mean, Ian is down there scouting. He was hand in hand with Ryan Poles still.
Right. Right.
Which, I mean, and other GMs, team GMs and coaches do walk around and talk with each other. So even if he did take the Jags GM job, that's something we could see in the future, is those two hanging out at the Senior Bowl and scouting together.
Yeah, but but now you're getting into, now I don't know what the Bears schedule is as far as how they do meetings. When I was with both, actually 3 clubs, Philadelphia, the Giants, and here, we always met in February before the combine and put together the preliminary board. Okay. What the preliminary board looks like now and what the real board looks like in April are totally different things. And what you do now is you're really putting it together by not best to worst, but best to worst by position, but not lining it up on the full board. So you go over each position and line the players up. But if I'm Poles, I don't want him in those meetings.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, they have a good friendship. I mean,
yeah, I know that, but I don't want him to know. I wouldn't want him to know how we got guys, even though it's preliminary.
Yeah.
How we got guys lined up, because then he can guess. He knows Ryan good enough to know that second round they're going to probably do this.
They're going to do this.
And he's.
But do you think Ian right away when he got his job would do something to screw over Poles, like trade up?
You're damn right, man. That's competition.
He wanted.
I'll tell you a story, and this goes way back, right before I started working for Buffalo part time. So this is like maybe 1980. Bills drafted, whatever year it was, they drafted Perry Tuttle in the first round, wide receiver from Clemson. Okay. So I think it was Perry Tuttle. He's talking to Dick Vermeil, who was, I think, the coach of the Eagles at the time. Okay. And they're real tight. And Vermeil tells him how much he loves Perry Tuttle. So what does Chuck Knox do? Because back then, Chuck Knox had control over football operations. And Norm Pollum was the guy who hired me and my mentor. He was the vice president of player personnel. So anyway, Knox trades up to take Tuttle, knowing what Vermeil knew. And they're friends because, hey, the whole idea is to get good players.
It is.
And so it's like, if you knew somebody else is going to take a guy you like, you got to get in front of him.
Man, I just, to me, man, that's tough. I knew he was a favorite in Jacksonville, but just the way they've been handling the process, it's made me question, maybe they're waiting for someone from Kansas City or Philadelphia. To me, the whole process was a little puzzling.
Well, you can see the front office guys you can let go now. The guy
how does that normally work out?
The guy from Tennessee who got the job came from Kansas City. They're still playing.
But he did it earlier, but when they were in between weeks.
Right.
Now that they're going to the Super Bowl. Oh, Kenneth Grant.
So it's, I just from the planning for free agency and that original stacking of the board, if I think I'm losing Ian, I don't let Ian anywhere near those meetings. That's just me.
That's tough because this week was, and they were at least day 2. They were side by side,
which is fine. I always hung out with my good friends when I was at the All-Star game.
Not in the meeting at the combine. They discussed the actual board. Okay, got you. Yeah, and that could definitely be going down. We don't know how they're operating down there, but they were definitely. One thing I did see is they were focused on the trenches, especially Ryan Poles. He was right there every time they do the one-on-ones, every time they did the competes. Poles was there. He was watching closely, and I saw a lot in the trenches.
As we said a couple of weeks ago, I think that their first 3 picks are 2 offensive linemen and a defensive lineman.
Yep. Or I think
whatever
it could
order
go the other way. 2 defensive line and an offensive line. Either way,
it depends what they do in free agency, and everything will be really. You got to take one step at a time, and everything will depend on what happens in free agency. they sign 2 guys in free agency, then they may only draft 1 offensive lineman.
I still think we'd probably draft 2, but not in the first 3 picks.
Right. But, you can get a depth guy down the road, but I'm talking about a guy you want to come in and start. Yep. So, and the way this draft is setting up, there really aren't any left tackles. There aren't any left tackles. I mean, you could say, Campbell's left tackle. Well, Campbell's got short arms.
I think his arm, we haven't measured him yet. We don't know.
Well, no, we got a spring measurement, and that's 33 even.
33.
I know it. Yeah, I got it because I got.
You can stretch him out, man. You can stretch him out over the year. He's still growing. These guys are still growing.
The only thing is, I'll say this, and this goes back, and I talked about it on my show. So this goes back. Taylor Decker is a senior at Ohio State, and I'm doing them, and then I having a conversation probably a couple of weeks after I did them, and I'm having a conversation with Howie Roseman. Now this is in the fall. That said, we're not even close to the draft yet. So I really like that Ohio State tackle. Howie goes, I don't. Why not? Got short arms. Now I didn't have the spring measurements. What's his arm length? 32 and a half. I said, damn, Howie, they look longer. Well, he goes to the combine, and they were 33 and 3/4. Okay. So, and the point being is that, first of all, it's the most screwed up measurement known to mankind. And all the world of football measurements, that one is screwed up the most because nobody does it exactly.
So one of the things I've noticed over the last couple of years, I've seen it differ from the Senior Bowl to the combine.
The combine you can take as gospel.
Yeah.
Because they do it, number one, the same guy does it year after year after year. Mark Sadowski was on my staff. He's now with Pittsburgh. Mark did it for 10 years in a row. And Mark's degree came out of Tulane. His degree was engineering. He built this whole contraption to make sure it was done correctly.
Oh, wow.
For the hand measurement and the arm measurement. What you're doing is you're measuring from the AC joint to the tip of your middle finger, out like this.
Okay.
And obviously it's easy to find the tip of your middle finger, but it's where they start the measurement here. If they're not getting into the right spot.
Wingspan measurements. That's why I've always been a fan of the wingspan.
That is key too, because what the first thing you look for is you want the wingspan to be longer than his height. Okay, and then if you're looking at, he's got 32-inch arms, but he's got, let's say the guy's 6'4", so that would be 76 inches, and he's got a 78.5 or 79-inch wingspan. Well, his length is pretty good, but it also means he's broad-shouldered. So, there's different ways you can do it, but you don't want a guy whose wingspan is shorter than his height, because then that can have effects supposedly on balance and stuff.
100%. And I was laughing at a Lion fan in the comments, said the Detroit Lions revolutionized football by going for it on 4th down and taking a running back in the first. I was like, a running back in the first? I know running backs have been down the last couple of years, but running backs have been going in the first round my entire life, and they've went a lot higher than Gibbs. Guys like Saquon Barkley and Ezekiel Elliott, just recent examples, but they always have. But
they've gone like 3 and 4. Those guys,
top 5 picks. The Lions took Gibbs at number 12. So yeah. Did you? I was curious though. Mike Green has been a guy that's been a hot name that's been going around. Q said he was disappointed in his measurements, and one thing when I was doing
32 and a half on his arm. We'll see what he was at the combine now.
Dennis Allen has never drafted a DE in all his time
with short arms,
which with the guy under 33 and a quarter is the shortest ever. So
it is a very meaningful stat. We did a study when I was with the Bears, and we took all the good pass rushers going back like 20 years, and that we had the data on, and the common denominator was not speed. It was arm length. And so, right away that told us that the best pass rushers have really good arm length. Now, saying that, who's the best pass rusher in football right now?
You talking DE or defensive tackle? Chris Jones?
No,
There's a lot of good ones.
Micah Parsons?
Micah Parsons, yeah. Myles Garrett. There's a lot of great ones.
31 and a half.
Yeah.
But he's the exception.
He's also kind of used differently. Like he's like a joker or a wild card on the defense.
Yes.
They move him around. They find mismatches for him, and he just exploits the team's weaknesses.
But he's the exception. There's been we had Ngakoue. Ngakoue was 32 and a half and he was 6'2" and change. Green is 6'2" and change. So you also look at it as the arm length as compared to his height. So Green might be at Indy. We'll get the official number at Indy in another 3.5 weeks. He might be 32 3/4. Well, he may not be a first rounder, but he's going for the top 10 picks of the second. That's for sure. And
I think he might have brought his stock up.
No question. But here's what happens.
But not the Bears.
Here's what happens with these guys. And what you ought to do is jot down the names of the guys that had real hot weeks, like the offensive lineman from North Dakota State. You could go in the first round now. Okay.
We've seen it. I saw it. I started doing that last year because there was guys like that last year, and I was 50-50. Some of them do, like, remember right. Cody Mauch? Cody Mauch was one last year. Cody Mays, the guard from Tennessee the year before. Those were guys who had like third or fourth round grades heading into the Senior Bowl. They had huge Senior Bowl weeks and then went in the back of the first round. So you see
now the thing with the kid from North Dakota State, what helps him in a place like the Senior Bowl, or could have been the East-West had he gone there, was that except for maybe one game a year, you're seeing him against FCS level competition. And at the Senior Bowl, he's going against quality players every single rep. So that really helps a guy like him more than it can other people. But the point I'm trying to make here is okay, the Senior Bowl, you get guys that get this like Senior Bowl bump. And then and this is in the media, the draft media. And then you're going to get to the combine in 3 or 4 weeks, and there's going to get guys who jump off the charts with their workout, and they're going to get a bump, right? Now wait till the draft and see where they go. And a lot of them end up going where they should have been going in the first place. So the
key there,
point I'm trying to make is that the tape in the fall is what matters the most.
You always have to. That's the baseline of any evaluation. And Greg just nailed it on the head. This is a guy who's worked in the NFL for 30 plus years in scouting departments, but that's it. You use the Senior Bowl if a guy to confirm things that you see on tape. But if a guy catches your eye on the Senior Bowl, and one of the guys about 2 years ago, there was a guy, Adewale, what was his name? The Northwestern defensive tackle. He went to the Colts.
Yeah, but he went in the third round.
Yeah, he showed up at the Senior Bowl, looked awesome. And then he went to the Combine and had an RAS score of like 9.95 or something, like off the chart.
Third round.
Everybody loved this guy, but when I went back and looked at the tape, it wasn't there on the tape. I just didn't see it, and it was a guy that I just really, really wanted to like. But when you go and watch the tape,
I'm with you on that. He was one of my favorite players. In fact, I sent Ballard a text right after he drafted him, and I said, "You stole one." Well, guess what? Now 3 years later, and some bitch still hasn't started.
Yeah, and it's tough, and that's why the Senior Bowl, you can get those guys who can stand out, but when you go, if it doesn't match when you go watch the tape, and this one guy I wanted to talk about, I don't know if you've seen him much this week, but Jonah Monheim, he was the center, or he was a guard at USC when Caleb Williams was there. He took over center this year, made all the line calls, but overall, USC's offensive line was bad. So a lot of people have automatically assumed that Jonah Monheim was bad. And his first day was a little bit up and down. But day 2 and day 3, this guy dominated some guys that are supposed to go in the first round. Guys like Walter. He beat Walter Nolan.
His arm length?
He beat Deion Walker. Yeah, it's short.
30
But he's
and
a
three
center.
quarters.
He's a center, though. Center is the one where they'll take guys.
Well, Olin had short arms, and
Yeah.
Olin was 31 and a half.
Mm-hmm.
But now, in fact, one of my favorite players.
Tackles, we won't do it, but a center, maybe.
One of my favorite players in the draft through the fall, just watching tape, loved his tape. I've brought him up on here a couple of times. Is a guy named Newman from Michigan State, left guard. Played at Holy Cross for 4 years, was a starting left tackle for 3 or 4 years at Holy Cross, does a grad transfer to Michigan State, plays left guard. I mean, he plays really good for Michigan State. So he's in the East-West game. And the first day they come in, they get the measurements. Eric sends me the measurements, and it's 30 and 3 quarters. And I go, oh, fuck. So then I'm watching the one-on-ones.
Yeah.
He's really doing good, but know what showed up in the one-on-ones that I didn't notice on tape? The shorter arms as compared to the other linemen.
You see with the other guys, yeah. One of the guys, the guy that was really, there's a guy who was really short at the combine too, that Willie Lumpkin, the guard center from North Carolina. He has competed. That guy has battled in every rep. And they told a story about him that when they were recruiting him, they were like, look, don't look at this guy's height. Just watch the tape first. And the coach did it and was like, I love him, and brought him to North Carolina. So, I mean, there's some guys, but my thing with Jonah Monheim, people think he's not good because USC's O-line wasn't good. He has absolutely dominated some guys like Walter Nolan and Deion Walker. And one thing that I think a lot of people...
I'm not a big Deion Walker fan. I think he plays too tall, and he's not...
He does.
He's a pusher. He's not.
We'll get them in a minute because I like him. See, I think to me, I see some Javon Dexter in him. You have to coach it out of him. He plays with his pads too high, but he's 6'7", 340. When during the reps this week, when his pads weren't high, he has more power and push than anybody at the Senior Bowl. It just he can move anybody. So I mean, that's something you have to take into account. And I think with the right coaching, like Bill Johnson, the new defensive line coach we have, 40+ years of D-line experience, get a guy like
that. I watched that guy. He's a freaking legend now.
I mean, he's won Super Bowls, multiple national championships in college. He was on that LSU team that won a title. He won a championship in the UFL.
But I guess he's going to be, Bigsy says he's going to be the assistant D-line coach, which doesn't surprise me because he's 69 years old.
Yeah, so he's going to help someone. Okay.
But I think, and I'm guessing, that there's been a guy that's been with Allen for years at New Orleans. He was at first the pass rush specialist. I put it out on X this morning. His name is Kevin Young or something like that.
Okay.
I might, but last year he started off the year as the quote pass rush specialist, which meant he was like the assistant D-line coach, but he ended up taking over the D-line. Allen fired the D-line coach. But this guy's been with Allen since like 2017. So I'm thinking that, you know, I'm guessing, but one together is going to be 2 with that guy. If he's been with him that long, there's obviously he likes him.
Oh yeah, I mean, and I also believe we're going to hire our offensive line coach either today or tomorrow. I think that'll probably be done in the next 24 hours.
Yeah, Rocher's getting interviewed today.
Yeah, his interview's today. Yep.
All the guys. Now, the name that hasn't come out that I heard was interviewed was the Texas coach, Flood, who's a pretty good guy. He's the highest paid guy in college football. I thought Fry was. I got corrected, but Fry ended up, his base salary was $1 million, but he ended up getting 1.2 because of the playoffs. And then Rocher's the third college guy. Oh, and the guy from Notre Dame.
Oh yeah, Notre Dame.
Joe Randolph guy is really, really good.
Okay, Keo had a great question here. My answer to this would easily be the Senior Bowl. He says, "Do you think teams value the Senior Bowl or Combine more?"
They're all a piece of the puzzle. The fans and the draftniks put a lot of stock into the Combine and the Senior Bowl because of, you know, it gets so much notoriety and so much television exposure, but the teams don't. That it's all, you know, you go into the Combine and you want to get the measurables and just see, because then, okay, like two guys we want to know. Campbell, what's his real arm length? Okay, it was 33 in the spring, but what's it really? And then Banks from Texas, how tall is he? Like Connerly was another guy. Is he tall enough to play tackle? Well, he came in at the Senior Bowl at 6'4", so 6'4" and an ace with 34-inch arms. So he's fine. He could be either or, a tackle or a guard at that size. But if he was 6'3" and 3/4, no way he was playing tackle. Banks is going to be the same way. Banks is listed as being 6'4". If he's 6'4" and an ace, 6'4" and 1/4, well, you can play him at tackle if he has good enough arm length. But we won't know that because he's never been measured before. So we won't know that until we get to the combine. I got a list. Do you watch or do you follow Duke Manyweather on?
Oh yeah, the O-line guy. Oh yeah,
yeah. I do too, and we talk periodically. But I asked him to send me his list of guys, and he sent it to me last week. I got to get it here.
Oh yeah, you got to read those out. I want to write them down.
Okay, yeah, I know. That's why I want to give it to you. Now, where the hell did I put it?
I will comment. So to me, I think the combine is more about medicals and measurements. That's where
the most important thing there is the medical.
They're checking on medicals and also measuring guys. That's where you find out the arm length. Senior Bowl is really it is some good competition, but it's best for the smaller school guys who have a chance to stand out against some of the best competition in the nation, and a lot of tackles who, like you said, don't have the arm length. So they go to the Senior Bowl and get a bunch of reps at guard.
Okay, a perfect example would be a guy who was at the Senior Bowl, played, I would say his last name, Memembo or something from
the Purdue guy?
From Missouri. No, it was not Embo.
I get the Missouri and the Purdue guy mixed up. It's Embo and
but the Missouri guy was a right tackle.
Yeah.
And really looks good on tape. He's 6'3" and 3/4. He's a guard. The guy is really a good football player.
He is. There was also the West Virginia tackle. He didn't give up a sack in 4 years at left tackle at West Virginia.
He got
32-inch arms.
Yeah.
He went to Mobile. First day he was inside at guard. He did struggle a little bit. I thought day 2 and day 3 he definitely battled back and held his own. He's a guy who's probably going to be a guard in the NFL, similar to Peter Skoronski a little bit.
Probably, yeah. He's a good player, but he's probably not a day 1 guy. He's probably a day 2 guy. Here it is. Okay, here's Duke's guys. He's got Will Campbell.
Okay.
Jalen Travis, Wyatt Milam, Membo, the guy from Missouri we just talked about, Caleb Rogers, Jared Penning, Miles Frazier, Tyler Booker, Thomas Perry, Clay Webb, Baraka Beckett, Peyton Dunn, Tate Ratledge from Georgia, who I like going into the year.
Tate Ratledge. He's been injured, but yeah.
Yeah, well, he had a high ankle sprain, and then he had that tightrope surgery, and he missed a few games. So he missed probably 4 games, and Jared Wilson's the last guy. So he's got a hell of a group.
Okay. Jared Wilson's a guy I really wanted to see him at the Senior Bowl. He didn't show up, so didn't have a chance to see him. He's a guy who is viewed as potentially the top center in the draft. I do think Gray Zabel, the North Dakota State guy who played left tackle, but he also played all over the offensive line. He dominated at center this week. I'm a big.
No, he'll be a center or a guard in the league.
Yeah, definitely. Proven piece. Let's see. NoHo has a question about free agency here. What do you think our chances of picking up a solid or proven piece or two for our O-line in free agency is?
Well, it's good, but they're going to be. And the last time I had this conversation with Poles was his first year.
Yeah,
and the only tackle he was going for was McGlinchey, and he had a figure. And when it got above that figure, he dropped out, and he sent a text to me. I said, "Is there any others you want?" He goes, "No, I'm going to draft one." And then he drafted right. So, he has a figure. He knows what the figure is, and he's not going to go above that figure. In the case of McGlinchey, He said, I was good with the average. What I was not good with was the guarantee.
Okay.
Because that was too much because the guarantee comes back to bite you in the ass. If the guy doesn't pan out and you got to get rid of him, then you're getting hit with a cap hit.
Then you have that giant. That's how you get in cap trouble, and that's one of the things he's done a great job of structuring his contracts to avoid that so far.
But do I think he's going to offer $20 million to Trey Smith? Yep. And
if he hits free agency, yeah, and I do think there are more quality potential free agent offensive linemen this year because we don't know yet who's actually going to.
Well, I make him. Let me see. I don't want to lose you here. If I go into this, I'm still there with you, right?
Yep.
Okay. I have a little list here.
I mean, Trey Smith's easily the top guy. I have a couple guys listed. Trey.
Yeah,
Smith
I don't have a lot yet. I go guards: Trey Smith, Mekhi Becton,
okay,
Patrick McCarry,
okay,
who's the guard at Baltimore, and Ben Bradenson, Tampa Bay. Now, the oldest guy is McCarry, is 27. Trey Smith's 25. Bradenson's 25. Becton's 25. Centers, I got Liam Eichenberg, who was actually, was a tackle at Notre Dame, but he had 32.5-inch arms, so he played guard and center at Miami. Eichenberg's 27, Dahlman's 26. Bradley Bozeman is 30 for the Chargers.
We passed on Bozeman the last 2 years in free agency, so I don't see that one happening.
And then Evan Brown,
okay,
who's at Arizona. Those are the only guys that I thought were the shit to play center.
Do you? What about guard from the Indianapolis Colts? One to check out at least. Will Fries.
I didn't put him down, and I had I haven't even looked at him. And I had defensive tackles because I think they need another big guy to complement Billings. And it was funny because Johnson in his press conference said when they lost Billings, they lost a whole lot. He made an emphasis on that. So you need a guy to play in the rotation that plays that one technique. I got Greg Gaines from Tampa, Austin Johnson from Buffalo, but he's a little older, and Lecky Fotu from the Jets so far. Fotu was hurt a little bit this year. But those guys, and none of those guys, Gaines, Johnson, or Fotu, will cost you an arm and a leg, just like Billings didn't cost them. They're stealing him.
Billings is as long as he's healthy, Billings is a steal. Yeah,
one of the most valuable contracts. They're not even paying him $3 million a year,
and he's one of the better run stuffers in the league.
I know they should.
Go ahead.
They should redo his contract again but he did get hurt. So in fairness, he got paid for a full season and only played 2/3 of the season.
True. Duke had a great question here. He says, what's Greg's dream scenario for who we get in the draft? It is still very early.
I won't even go there until after free agency. Then to me, you got to go one step at a time. And once we see what they do in free agency, then it's going to be really easy to pinpoint what they might do in the draft.
Yeah, I think right now it's like you said, it is way too early. There are some names floating around out there, some guys I would watch. I would say one of them, Will Campbell, how his arms measure out. If he has 33 to 34-inch arms, he's a guy that if he's still there at pick 10, I like Will Campbell. He could play tackle. We could move him inside to guard to start out, but I do like him. Other than that, there's a lot of defensive linemen to look out for. I think there's one guy at the Senior Bowl that I think is a potential to go with the pick up as high as 10, and that's Walter Nolan, the defensive tackle from Ole Miss. He's probably been the best player all week.
I think 10's a little high for him. I like him.
I think right now it probably is, but if he continues this offseason in his trajectory, I think after the first three to four picks this year, and Jim Nagy said it yesterday, and it's kind of something I was thinking. This isn't a year with this very strong top 15. There's like 2 or 3 guys at the top. You have your Travis Hunter. You have your Abdul Carter. You have a couple guys up there. And then it's pretty mixed up from.
Right. No, everybody's going to look at it differently. I used to call them 20 to 40 guys. And that means, you get to that part of the draft And one team may have a guy number 36, and another team could have him at 21 because talent is relatively the same. This year, it might go 5 to 20, where you're going to get.
That's exactly. Yeah, he was saying 5, and he said there's a lot of depth, and he said it was one of the things that when he was putting the Senior Bowl roster together this year, part of it is the influx of juniors. They had a lot more. Last year was the first year juniors could actually attend the Senior Bowl. This year they had a lot more interest, but he said normally in normal years, midweek when guys drop out, because it happens every year. Guys have really good practice first couple of days, and then they drop out.
Plan to. The East-West had like 18 guys pull out after the practice. They know it beforehand.
Yep. But he said normally it's what he has to do is then he has to move guys who play defensive end. They have to rotate into defensive tackle and move everything around. But this year they had so much talent on the roster that even after
he invited like 120 guys. So
he was like, I'm fine. Like the Ohio State guys didn't show up because there were supposed to be 5 or 6 Ohio State guys there. And he talked about that. He said if they would have showed up, look, we would have made room for them. But honestly, we didn't even have room for them. But they have so much talent, they didn't even need to show up. But yeah, this year it's deep in the draft. So I think even the guy who we take at number 10 right now is wide open because it's not like last year it was probably the draft was like 10 to 12 players deep before the drop off. So we knew if it wasn't Rome Odunze, it could have been Malik Neighbors. It could have been a tackle like Olu Fashanu. There wasn't a lot of options of where we were going to go. But my guy, I think if Rome wasn't there, we were going to take Jared Verse. But this year, right now, it's wide open. So I don't think we can really talk about that. So Duke followed it up with, how about free agency then? What's a dream scenario there? And that one I think is a no-brainer for every Bears fan. Trey Smith is the guy. If he hits free agency, and that's what we want, the Chiefs to not figure out how to re-sign him.
The Chiefs could. I read a thing today, and I'll tell you, it makes sense. But what the figure is put the second-tier franchise tag on him, and then let him go in a trade. Then you're going to have to give up 2 number ones or a number 1 to get him.
I would hate that. I would hate that. I don't want to.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it.
They definitely. I don't know if anyone would do it. Honestly, is anyone really going to trade 2 number 1s for a guard when you could just take a guard in the first? I don't. Trey Smith himself was a 5th round pick, so I wouldn't want to do that. But that is the dream scenario.
But I'm going to tell you now, I wouldn't mind. And I was not a Becton fan until this year.
Oh yeah,
he turned it. Now Jeff Stoutland, I worked with him 1 year in Philly. And it was actually his first year in the pros. He was Saban's line coach at Alabama. And right now, he's the gold standard. He is the best line coach in football. So he has done a remarkable job. Becton was a bust at the Jets. And then he goes to the Eagles, and he's really playing good football.
Well, so I got to ask you a question on that, though, because this happens all the time in the NFL. When you are on a team and it's a bad offensive line overall, and you're just one guy, and Becton played left tackle there.
When he had injury problems there too, which didn't help. But he's probably not a left tackle, and they were putting him where he's not.
And then you take him out of that situation, and then you plug him in with the Eagles, who have guys who have been there for years, a solid core unit, and you just plug one guy in. I think a lot of times it's easy to hide that guy's weakness, and it's a lot of times why fans will see guys. It happened with Lucas Patrick for a couple games this year before he got hurt. He went to the Saints, and people were seeing, oh, Lucas Patrick's one of the better rated guards. First off, PFF grades are dumb, but it sometimes happens when you're on an offensive line and there's weaknesses everywhere. You can't hide anybody. But when you get put on a good offensive line, you look a lot better.
And he's right. He's right. He's playing next to Lane Johnson, who's probably the best right tackle in football.
Mm-hmm.
Now, speaking of Lane Johnson, that was the year when they drafted him. That was when I was working for Philly. And he was one of these guys that nobody knew what he was when he went to the Senior Bowl. He played tight end until his last year at Oklahoma.
Ooh, okay.
Bulked up, and he was only about 290 then. But at the Senior Bowl, his ability to anchor and his footwork and stuff, and just his power just jumped out. And Philly took him with the fourth or fifth pick in the draft we had, and and took him to play, even though he was quote left tackle, to play right tackle because they had I can't think of his name now, the big left tackle the Bears had for a couple of years.
Jason Peters, yeah.
Yeah, they had Peters playing on the left side. Jason Peters was a free agent coming out. He was a tight end. He was a 320-pound tight end at Arkansas.
Turned into a Hall of Famer. Too bad.
Yep.
We always get those guys when they're too old. So I think one of the biggest questions I think heading into free agency is the left tackle position, where I believe Braxton Jones, I had studied this a lot and talked about it. I had thought he had played good enough to head into next season as our starter. Part of the reason is it's hard to upgrade there. If we don't take a left tackle with the first pick, free agency.
I don't see a left tackle unless the measurements change. That's worthy. It might be a guy develops, but there's nobody that's going to be as good as him, even in the first round. And then they took Amagaji actually to play left tackle.
A guy who I know people are down on Amagaji because
I'm not down at him at all. He had no camp.
He didn't look ready to play. He didn't have training camp. He hadn't played football in a year and a half. People need to wait till we get to camp next year.
Right.
I think
now, here's the guy, and speaking of Philly, and if I said this on the show 2 weeks ago, I apologize. But I know I said it on my show with Aldo. Philly's left tackle, the kid from Australia, never played football. Yep. He was a rugby player. Okay, Philly takes him in the last round. Took him 2 years, basically,
Jordan
kept him on the roster or put him on the practice squad or whatever, just to learn how to play. And now, and the guy's great now. He might be one of the better left tackles.
One of the best, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you know whose traits are very, very similar to that kid?
Braxton Jones or Amagaji. Well, they both, Amagaji and Braxton Jones, honestly, have a lot of very similar traits. The one thing
Amagaji's bigger in the lower body.
Yeah, he has the lower.
He's got
stronger
the
base. Yeah,
he's got the big ass
size. He's bigger. He's got a little bit more power,
and he's got equal athleticism.
But their arms, their athleticism, their size, they're similar in a lot of ways. So, to me, I think the more I've studied it, I do think there is a potential. There's two tackles right now that I think if they hit free agency, we can maybe go after them. Alaric Jackson, the one from the Rams, he's the one that fans are talking about. He's 26 years old. He graded out really well last year. He's been a left tackle. I think he could be a potential option.
There was one guy, and I in that chat we have, they brought up, and it's another guy named Jackson on the Rams that the Rams want to get rid of, that they had signed in free agency.
Jonah Jackson, that's the guard from Detroit.
Yes, yeah. I was mixing him up with Alaric.
Okay.
Yeah, Alaric is a pretty good player, but he's going to cost you $20 million. But what it's going to get down to is they're going to hire a guy in the next couple days, and he's going to have a lot to say about what he thinks he can do with, be it Braxton, be it Amagaji, or you got to go in the draft.
Yep. And I think I would honestly rather, if I had my choice, because I believe this year's defensive line class in the draft is just absolutely loaded, and the Senior Bowl has really showcased that. So to me, if we can fill some of these holes in free agency, and I mostly mean the interior, but I did want to bring up left tackle because fans hate Braxton Jones. I don't think they appreciate.
I only care what I care what the coach thinks. I don't care what the fans think.
Yeah, it's the same here, and I think. But the only thing that complicates my opinion with Braxton Jones is the injury he had late in the year. Is if he's not going to be ready for training camp, and right now we simply just don't know the answers. That the Bears probably do. but
No,
I don't.
I think he did. He dodged a bullet.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, he should be fine.
I did
He had
read a
like a
little bit about
4 or
it, but
5 week injury or something.
okay, okay. Yeah, if he can come back for a full off-season program and he's 100%, I do think the interior of the line is what we really need to upgrade. I mean, we need possibly a new center, but center is the same thing. I was trying to talk to people about this as well. Drew Dahlman right now would be an upgrade, but he wouldn't be, honestly, a huge upgrade over what Coleman Shelton did. If you look at free agent rankings, and I don't take these too much, but if you look at the
Shelton's
PFF,
just too damn small.
yeah, well, I mean, but if you look at the center rankings in free agency this year, everyone will have Coleman Shelton as this number 2 or number 3 ranked center in free agency. So if we don't get Drew Dahlman, there isn't really much
No,
course to
Ryan
upgrade in
Bates is
free
going to be
agency.
your center if that's the case. And
And then
again,
in that case, I
that's
want
going
to
to play
draft
with the coach.
second round center. Find the best guy. Right now, obviously, the guy I'm connecting is that Gray Zabel. But if it's Jared Wilson, if you can get Jonah Monheim in the 3rd, or if there's someone else that can play center,
Monheim's going to go later than that because of his under 31-inch arms.
We'll see, man.
I just know how personnel people and coaches are when they see guys with short arms. They cringe. They'll go, okay, I'll take him late, and if he turns out to be great, we stole one. But they don't want to commit because the bust factor is really high.
Mm-hmm. I thought I had.
It's going to be the same with my guy from Michigan State. You know, he might come in at 31 and a quarter at the combine. And you know, and I watched the one-on-ones at the East-West game, and he went against some good people. He stonewalled, but he still got real short arms. And he did. Well, the thing I liked is he took some snaps at center.
A couple guys. I mean, that's what Gray Zabel's the guy. I mean, he took a lot of snaps at center. He doesn't have the short arms.
No, he's got 32 and a half.
And he impressed me so much this week. I think right now he's a guy who the Bears have to be watching. But that's my thing is center is going to be hard to upgrade. If we can't land Drew Dahlman, then we're going to have to draft one. And the draft is not that deep at center. Couple guys.
No, but the problem you have, and I've mentioned this, and this comes from Olin. And when you have a young quarterback and you pair him with a rookie center, you got a bunch of inexperience right in the middle of your offense. And he goes, it's not a good blend. But now if you got 2 good experienced guards, then that can help because you can have the guards making the line calls. Doesn't have to necessarily be the center. So, if you get like a Trey Smith or something, then you can make do with a Zabel from North Dakota State or whatever. So but you don't want to have inexperience at the guards and inexperience at center and a young quarterback with a brand new offense because now you're asking for trouble. Again, I'm just repeating what Olin told me.
Yeah, 100%. And a couple things from chat. Someone said you could just draft Jared Wilson and make Coleman Shelton your backup. And I don't know yet. I don't. Jared Wilson's a guy I still have questions about. He is one. People do rank him as the top-rated center, but he was on Georgia's O-line. It's a really good O-line. I was excited to see him at the Senior Bowl. He didn't show up. He skipped the week, so I still need to know more about him. And then Oscar asked a great question. Is Dahlman $8 million a season better than Coleman Shelton? And that's a question I have. I don't know.
If they never brought Shelton back, it would be fine with me. He just gets overpowered too easily.
Yeah, it's true. The thing is, though,
he's pumped up. He might weigh 300.
Dahlman did too, though. The same thing happened.
I haven't studied him, so I can't.
He's a killer run blocker, but when it came to pass blocking, I saw a lot of the things that you see from Coleman Shelton. So it was like, is it really a huge upgrade? Someone did ask about Ricky Stromberg. We signed him real late in the season to our practice squad. He was a center from Arkansas a couple of years ago. I still don't know if or when Stromberg's going to be ready to play. He had an injury, so that was tough.
Here's the thing that sours me a little bit. First of all, I thought he got drafted too high. I thought he was like a fourth, fifth round guy who went in the third round, more of a fifth round guy. But that's neither here nor there. Washington invests a third round on him. It's year 2. Granted, you have a whole new field in there, but still the one guy who was involved in drafting him was still there, the one front office guy. Actually, both guys were still there. They just weren't in charge anymore. But he gets hurt, and they do an injury release and pay him and get rid of him instead of putting him on IR. To me, that says he ain't good enough.
Yeah, and to me, you can always like guys coming out of college, and I think that's something that's, as fans, yes, I liked Stromberg, and I would have liked if the Bears drafted him in the 5th round. So being able to get him for free, just pick him up off free agency, I always like those moves. But the thing is, with guys coming out of college, the biggest thing, it's not always just talent. A lot of time it's work ethic, it's preparation. There's a lot of things that go into being successful in the NFL. And when a guy gets drafted with a high selection, like you said, a 3rd round pick, and a team moves on from him that quickly, to me, it's just a giant red flag. Like, they saw something that was like, even though we invested a 3rd round pick in this guy, we don't even want to keep him around. So
right. We don't want to keep him on IR and pay him. And he's on a rookie contract, and those guys, it's a split contract. He's not getting the full pay. He's getting. They said no, we're going to do an injury settlement and get rid of him. So he didn't fit. Either he didn't fit what they were doing, or he just wasn't good enough.
Yep. And someone said here, Dahlman and Shelton are the same size. That's a great point. That's why.
Well, Shelton is a pumped up 300, 295. He's a natural 275, 280.
Yeah,
Dahlman was 305 coming out.
Okay, so he's just bigger naturally. I got it. And great comment by Tony May here. He says he thinks we need a fast tight end to be a backup for Kmet. This is something I think tight end position other than Cole Kmet this year was a big disappointment. I do like Gerald. Yep. Just he didn't manufacture much. I don't know if that was on the offensive coordinator and the coaches or not, but I will say one thing I did learn at the Senior Bowl this year, this is a really good tight end class. So we could get a really good backup tight end in the 3rd to 5th round. So I would keep an eye on something.
Well, right now we don't have a 4th.
Yeah, but we could have 2/3 if you're right on 2/3 and 2 seconds. That's 5 picks in the first 3 rounds.
Right.
One of those could be a tight
end. And I wouldn't shock me that somewhere along the line he trades down to get another pick.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Especially you can
in fact, right now, I would, especially given that it looks like the drop off, you get the same player at 15 as you can get at 5 or whatever. I'd be trading out because I might have a group of 5 players that I really like that I'm happy with.
That's what I believe. I think that's very possible this year. And this is where it comes down to me. And that's why I mentioned Will Campbell earlier. When I'm looking at that board, unless you're taking Will Campbell to be your left tackle because they decided we don't think Braxton Jones is that guy, pick 10 is wide open. It's just wide open and not a lot of – it's a lot of square what is it, square hole trying to get in a circle,
round peg, square hole.
Yeah, round peg, square hole, where the Bears might
square peg, round hole. I didn't even do it right.
They might be best off there where some other team is trying to move up for one of these guys, and we can move down and get another pick because there's going to be a handful of guys there where it's like might be a little bit too high for this guy. I don't know about this guy, and that's why you even see in mock drafts some of them have us taking a running back, Ashton Genty, and
that ain't going to happen.
Fans are go crazy about that.
That is not going to happen. I mean, you do that. And I'm just saying this from my experience.
Mm-hmm.
And you do that when he's the final piece of the puzzle. Well, right now, that puzzle needs a lot of pieces before you get to
well, I will say, imagine this, just a magical scenario, okay? We are able to sign Drew Dahlman and Trey Smith in free agency. And then you have 2 picks where it's very stacked at D-line, and you can address the D-line. Taking a running back that high, I will say this though: in a year that's absolutely stacked at running back, I think we can get a running back,
and most of them are going to go in day 3.
Yep, you can
because
get a
that's
running
where they
back in the
go.
3rd to 5th round that could probably come in here and at least battle to be a starter or be part of a rotation. So that's
You
one of the
look at
biggest
most of
reasons
the
I
good
don't take
running backs in
Ashton
the
team.
league, and they went on day 3.
I will say he's special though. I gotta say that's a special running back.
I'm interested in seeing how fast he runs. I don't think he's as fast as some people think he is.
I think he's fast. I don't know. I
I
think he's
mean,
fast.
what's fast to you?
22 miles an hour, 4.3. I think he's
Okay, now
at
if he's
least
4.3, that okay.
I
See,
think
if
he's
he's
at
like
least
4.48, if
To
he's
me, the 40 is
4.48,
different though. I like the miles per hour. Like if
no, I
when they
know,
put those
I
on him.
know.
And
But
I know there's
that's top end speed though. But with a
yeah,
running back, I'll argue this one with you, Swifty, because with a running back, it's that acceleration in the hole, not the
the
top end
shiftiness.
speed.
Yep. And that's why, but with Genty, another thing with the 40 is I wish they did 40-yard dashes different. You know what I wish they did? Let a guy run for 10 yards, make him run 50 yards, and then time
I
yards
used to
10
do
to
that all
50.
the time.
Yards 10 to because then you're getting how fast they run for 40 yards.
I
Not
used to take because you got an electronic time
Mhm.
from, you got 0 to 10, 10 to 20, 10 to 40, 20 to 40.
Yep.
So what I used to do, especially bigger guys like some big receivers, is who might be tall, long-legged, and not be quick starters. I wanted to see what their top end speed was. Now at that point we didn't have miles per hour, but I had the time from 10 to 40 and 20 to 40 electronically.
Yeah.
So then it's like, okay, compare this guy to the top end speed of getting from the 10 to the 40 and the 20 to 40 of a guy that ran 4.38. And a lot of times it might be 100th of a second difference.
Yep. And that's what to me, like the getting down in the stance, they don't do that in the NFL. At least I think they should at least redo it to where the guys come out, they stand up like if they're a wide receiver, stand up like you do as a wide receiver and start like because that's how you start in the NFL. The ball's
True.
hyped and you start from a
No
standing position.
question.
And
Same thing with a running back.
yeah, it's just a weird thing, but I'm not too big on his 40 time, but I do think this year's Senior Bowl is really a lot of talent. And I'm this is I talked to Greg a little bit about this, but Greg is on the committee for the Shrine Bowl. So and worked in the NFL for a long time. To me, last year was my first time ever getting credentials. Had credentials for the Shrine Bowl and the Senior Bowl, and getting access to the Shrine Bowl tape was really cool. I didn't know last year that I had access to the Senior Bowl tape because it went in my junk email. But this year I got that tape. It's actually up on my laptop back here. So much good stuff. You can watch every single play.
I got to find out if I'm getting Senior Bowl tape. I got to call Eric and find out.
Also, if not, let me know. We can talk. But there's a lot of people don't realize that because they'll watch the NFL Network coverage, and I've watched that too. I have it on repeat. Actually, I watched it like 4 times yesterday while I'm watching tape because with the tape there's no sound, so I got to have some sound on too. But a lot of people will see like one rep that goes around social media and be like, "This guy got killed at the Senior Bowl." And that's what someone was telling me about Jonah Monheim, and they don't realize he had about 40 reps of 1v1 that I've went over on tape. 40 reps. And I say only lost 1 or 2. Just because 1 or 2 of those gets put on social media doesn't mean he has a bad
Well,
week.
the guy
So
who got
something to
killed,
keep in
people
mind.
are going to say you draft him. You're going to think of the Senior Bowl is Connerly from Oregon, who got run over by Green.
Oh.
But reality is he didn't have his feet set.
Yeah. And Connerly's been a bit. I will say this about Connerly. I think he had a good week, but was a lot better at right tackle than left tackle. So to me, he's not a fit for the Bears unless they're thinking of moving Darnell Wright to left tackle.
He might, like I say, he ended up being 6'4" and an 8, but he could, he's probably a guard. Not when you just look at his body, he's more of a guard body than a tackle body, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Same with Emory Jones could be the same way. He had some good reps both ways, but also both of those guys, I thought they tried him at left tackle and right tackle. Both of them looked a bit uncomfortable on the left side to me and were getting beat, but looked natural on the right side, which Some guys are like that. Some guys are able to play
draft
both.
is loaded with right tackles, and then another guy who played right tackle was really good, and I can't say his last name. The kid from Arizona.
Oh, Jordan Savi.
Yeah,
Savi
whatever.
Guy.
I need Olin to help me with that one. I mean, he's got really good feet. He's 6'3.5", so he's going to be.
He looked like a guard.
The kid from Missouri. Yeah, he's going to be a guard.
I think he had a.
I love the kid from Missouri now. If they took the kid from Missouri, I like him better than Booker because I don't like.
He was my biggest disappointment because he didn't practice all week.
Who's that?
So, Mimbu, the Missouri guy.
But I see. I I don't care about that. I care about. I get what you're saying.
I wanted when I came into it, like before the week at the Senior Bowl, I was like, "There's two players that I think right now they're clearly not up there in pick 10, and the Bears might have to trade down." But I said could be on the Bears' radar for a first-round pick, and that was that Armand Mimbu, the Missouri tackle, and then Walter Nolan. And Mimbu didn't show up. I think he was. I think the reports were he was sick the first 2 days. And then by day 3, he just decided to pull out. I don't know if he.
Well, and the agents have a lot to do with that.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know what his agent is, but like Booker from Alabama is a hell of a player. I don't know if he's going to be a fit for what they want. He's got good movement skills, but if they're doing something similar to what they did last year, then I don't see him as a fit. If they're changing a little bit, then he's fine because he's a freaking killer now.
Oh, he is. I mean, he's probably one of the best offensive linemen in the draft.
But he's got to be close to 340. Mambu is like 332, but very, very athletic. Yeah. I was really surprised at how athletic he was.
The only other guy, I don't know. Have you seen much on Shamar Stewart, the DE from Texas A&M?
You know what?
He's a freak.
And I know, like, Daniel Jeremiah is pushing him. And I keep seeing 1.5 sacks. And that's like, wait a minute. There's something missing here.
See, now, when I said it too, now when he said Daniel Jeremiah, what Daniel actually said about him was, look, most people are going to see this guy, see that he only had 1.5 sacks this year, and they're going to write him off. But there's too much talent, and he's an absolute freak. He dominated.
That is, but why do you only have 1.5? I know, but why do you only have 1.5 sacks?
Yeah, can't finish. I don't know.
And he plays for a coach that's a killer now. That guy.
And the defensive line had other talent as well.
Yeah, they got the big kid who transferred in from Purdue.
Scourton, yeah.
He
was supposed to be at the Senior Bowl and didn't show up too.
So it just bothers me that production's got to come into play here, and I don't care how good it's. To me, it's okay. Now you got to dig. You got to dig into the character. There's something missing, and when the guy's got talent like that, and he only has 1.5 sacks, what am I missing here?
A good comment from Craig here, kind of a satire. He said, Booker not fitting what the Bears did on the O-line last year might be his best endorsement. I just had to read that.
Well, I'm talking about, but I don't think they're going to be as much of they're going to be a zone team, but are they going to be that outside zone team where you got to play a lot in space? Because you don't see, I look at the Lions and I don't see them, their guys doing as much in space as the Bears linemen did. They do some, but not as much. And so, but again, a lot of it's going to be who's going to be the line coach. I'll tell you the one, I know the guy from Tulane who worked at the Saints for a long time is the number one guy, according to the media, Rocher. But yeah. Justin Fry from Ohio State's pretty freaking good now. And so is the guy from Notre Dame. I mean,
both of those are good.
Either one of those guys I'd be happy with. I keep looking, I go on these 2 websites to see if anything happened, like if the Notre Dame guy resigned or something like that. Let me just
see if any news. I do expect that to break soon. We just hired the D-line coach last night. Very experienced guy, and I think the O-line
nothing yet.
very soon.
Nothing yet. So, but I'll be happy with any of those guys. That to me, it's the most important offensive hire. Like, some people were about the offensive coordinator, and I'm like, why?
He's not calling plays.
He's not really an offensive coordinator.
Yeah. I said, and not only that, is it like normally your
perfect guy. He's
your
actually
offensive
the
coordinator
perfect
is your number 2 guy on offense, but we have Antoine Randall L, who's the assistant head coach, and then the other guy is the passing game coordinator. So there's just a lot of guys on offense. I don't really know what
the passing coordinator guy. He's the younger brother of Zach Taylor, the Bengals. Yep. Okay. Now he was in Philly. That one he was one of Chip Kelly's first hires, and then they got rid of Chip, and Howie really liked Press Taylor, and so when they hired Peterson, Howie pushed to keep him, and Peterson liked him, took him down. Now he's running people. Oh, the Jacksonville offense sucked. I don't care. That's Peterson's offense.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean the guy's not a good coach. There's a lot.
They also thought he called plays there. It was Peterson calling plays.
He did some play calling, but Peterson was the main play caller. But it's the talent of the coach. And what he's being asked to do here as passing game coordinator, that's what Thomas Brown was. You're working more with the coaches than you are with the players.
Yeah. And basically, he said basically he's just going to help implement the game plan and the details. So, I mean, he's just basically doing what Ben Johnson tells him to do.
But the people say, oh, he stinks. He's not any good. I hate comments like that. And that's when I erupt on Twitter, is because you know what the fuck you're talking about. You know nothing about the guy. And you're making stupid comments like this.
Yeah, that's the majority of Twitter for the most part, man. I try to stay off there as much as I can, but I think it's a great time to be a Bears fan. We're heading into another really important offseason here. Got a ton more Senior Bowl film to watch, and we're now only about 5-6 weeks away from free agency. So some of these answers are coming soon. Greg, as always, it's an honor to chat with you, man. I won't keep you around any longer. Let me check to make sure I don't have any more questions here. Someone asked if you had any thoughts on Kenneth Grant at 10. He's the big defensive tackle from Michigan.
Too high. He's a 18 to 25 type guy, good player. And I'm not sure he's a good fit for this scheme either, because this scheme not going to be a whole lot different from the types of, the body type and the athleticism that you wanted from it's going to be a coach's thing. But could he play that and play in the rotation with Billings at the 1? Yes, absolutely. No question. But you're not taking him at 10.
100%. And then Tim asks if about the third round picks, if Ian Cunningham goes to the Jags, they will be compensation picks, not normal third round picks. They'll
right. The bottom of the third this year, bottom of the third next year.
One this year, one next year. If he takes a job this year, which Greg seems to think is going to happen. Love that.
I'm just going on what 3 insiders that are pretty big.
I'm with it. I love it. I think it's time for Ian to get a job. And honestly, I think this is a really good draft to have an extra third round pick. I think it'd be a really good. Final question here. DJ Profit asks if you have any thoughts on where the new stadium,
Arlington Heights.
That's where I've been for a long time. I think that's the most logical destination.
If you listen to him the other day when he was talking about Johnson, he's going, well, we got that piece of property and we got the tax. He's playing politics right now. He's trying to get his way. In the end, he's not going to get the money he wants for downtown. That's my own opinion. He's going to get money for Arlington Heights. And to me, that they've already got over $200 million invested in that site. They can sell it, but are they going to get their $200 million back?
Definitely not. I'd say definitely not. But yeah, I think now that since they've had the property, I think it's just the most logical destination. As always, Greg, I appreciate you, man. Everyone in the
Okay,
chat,
buddy.
thanks for tuning in. Senior Bowl week. The game is tomorrow. Make sure you guys watch that. It's way more fun than the Pro Bowl games, which I didn't even watch. But bear down,
No,
guys.
I won't even watch that. That's junk.
Not even watch it. I might watch the flag football. I might. Flag football is okay. But bear down, guys. We're out of here.
See you later.